everyone, Lego Mega 96.1 here with another video. Well guys, today it's August 9th, 2019, and on this day in history in Anaheim, California, the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland opened to the public. Yes, ladies and gents, at Anaheim, California, Disneyland celebrates 50 years of the Haunted Mansion. From creaky doors to creaky floors, wall-to-wall creeps, hot and cold running chills, and with 999 happy haunts out for a swinging wake, the Haunted Mansion has become Disneyland's most popular and praised attractions, as that's not going for Anaheim, but for Disney World as well. Now, if you know me, the Haunted Mansion is actually one of my favorite attractions in the Disney parks. Why? Because everything about it is just awesome. The facade, the interior, the effects, everything. Talk about a haunted house with a little bit of pixie dust, and it's just so cool. Now, the only thing, I'm going to do 3 things for this video to honor the Haunted Mansion. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the history of the mansion. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a ride-through, a visual ride-through, and I'm going to do a toast near the end of the video. And some of the source material that I will be going over will be actually from the book, The Haunted Mansion from the Magic Kingdom to the Movies. Now, I actually got this book back in 2013, and I actually fell in love with this book. This has everything from the Haunted Mansion, from behind the scenes, leading up to the movies behind the scenes. Now, I'm well aware of the Haunted Mansion movie in 2003, and I know it got mixed reviews, but me personally, I enjoy it. Even though there were a few problems left and right, like a few plot holes, but it's still a decent film. Now, let's talk about the history of the Haunted Mansion. And I do mean history, because the Haunted Mansion actually dates back to the development of Disneyland. In the mid-1950s, when Disneyland was still in the planning stages, Walt Disney asked artist Ken Anderson to come up with some sketches for a haunted ghost house attraction to be built at Disneyland. They suggested to place the mansion on a crooked path off the famed Main Street USA at Disneyland. That idea was later scrapped and was placed on the back burner, and it wasn't placed on in New Orleans Square until the 1960s. Now, the facade of the mansion was complete in 1963, but it won't open until 1969. Now, what happened during that time, you may ask? Well, Walt Disney and his company actually took part in the New York World's Fair in 1964. Walt Disney introduced new ideas such as Brave Moments with Mr. Lincoln, Carousel of Progress, It's a Small World, and some of those effects were actually brought back to Disneyland, and some are even in use even to this day. And in 1965, during Disneyland's 10th anniversary, we actually saw some concept art of what's going into Disneyland. That segment was called New Orleans Square. And not only introduced the Haunted Mansion, but it introduced Pirates of the Caribbean, the Blue Bayou Lagoon, and a handful of attractions, gift shops, and restaurants that we know today. Now, Walt actually took part in that project, but sadly he wasn't around to see it, because in 1966, on December 15th, Walt Disney died of lung cancer. Never smoke, kids. Never smoke. Now, the mansion opened to the public on August 9th, 1969, and it became an instant hit. Loved by children, loved by adults, and loved by everyone across the US. And when Walt Disney World actually got its own Haunted Mansion, duplicates had to be made, and some of the dialogue was remade and redone to fit into the Magic Kingdom's Haunted Mansion, which I usually go to. Now, I've been to the one in Orlando, and I love the Orlando Mansion. Someday I will plan to visit the Anaheim Mansion, and like everyone, I'm gonna love it. It's Disney. Who cannot love Disney? And in 1983, in Tokyo Disneyland, the Haunted Mansion was mirrored in Fantasyland. And even to this day, it remained untouched. No updates, no nothing. I've actually seen the video, and it looked incredible. I mean, if the updates didn't happen, can you probably guess my reaction when I saw that? It looked so insane, I'm not gonna lie. And in 1992, along with the rest of Euro Disneyland, now Disneyland Paris, the Haunted Mansion is placed in Frontierland, but with a completely different name. Phantom Manor. And that manor actually ties into a fictional town called Thunder Mesa in Frontierland. Now, I will go over the history of Phantom Manor for Halloween on October 31st. So mark that on the calendar, guys. October 31st, Lego Maker goes over Phantom Manor. And now you know the history of the Haunted Mansion, let's do a visual ride-through of the Haunted Mansion in Anaheim, California. Now, along the way, I will point out facts about the mansion, so prepare to be intrigued. So sit back, relax, put on your Mickey ears, and sit down with your hitchhiking ghost friend as we do a visual ride-through of the Haunted Mansion in Anaheim, California. Our tour begins here with the gates of the Haunted Mansion. As you stroll around the crooked path, you will actually see the facade of the mansion. Now, the facade of the Haunted Mansion was actually based off a mansion in Maryland called the Snyder-Decker Mansion. I'm pretty sure I butchered the name. My deepest apologies if I butchered that name. Now, fun fact, I actually looked up the location of the place, and sadly it wasn't there, but it was replaced by apartment buildings. The picture looked pretty cool. It looked just like the Haunted Mansion in Anaheim. And here's another fact you didn't know. I was at Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, and I actually saw the house that inspired the Haunted Mansion in Orlando called the Harry Pecker Mansion. Now, I've actually been to Jim Thorpe, as I said, and I took some pretty interesting pictures. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on my DeviantArt channel. Type in Jim Thorpe, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, as you continue along your path, you will actually come in front of our hearse that sits in front of the mansion to this day. Now, here's a little history on that hearse. The hearse was bought from an antique Malibu dealer by the name of Dale Richards. It was supposed to be used for an Indiana Jones themed stunt show, but it was never brought to reality. So they decorated, and there it sits in front of the mansion to this day. Now, before I can go on, I know there's a myth that is circulating around that hearse. Apparently, that hearse was used to carry the historical corpse of a Mormon patriarch by the name of Brigham Young. That myth turned out to be completely untrue, though then again, it is a myth. So you pass through a pet cemetery, and you will actually see some tombstones with some really odd names. But those names happen to be the names of the Imagineers that actually worked on the mansion, like Alice Davis, Claude Coates, Mark Davis, Rolly Crump, which offhand Disneyland knows personally, Paul Frees, and a handful of others. Now, I've seen those type of tombstones at the Orlando Mansion. One of them was dedicated to Yale Gracie, Brother Dave, and a handful of others. Though, that is pretty cool. They're actually paying homage to actually some of the animators and the Imagineers that worked on the attraction. That is some pretty cool facts and paying homage to some of the Imagineers. Hats off to you, Disney. So after walking along the queue, we enter the foyer where a funeral dirge of Grim Grinning Ghost is played. And thus we are introduced to the narrator of this attraction, the Ghost Host, played by Paul Frees. Now originally there's going to be a Raven that's going to take part in narrating the ride, but that idea was later scrapped and we got the Ghost Host instead. Now before I can go on, I love Paul Frees' narration for the Haunted Mansion. It gives you that creepy, foreboding appearance that you're getting ready to see some ghosts in an old mansion. That is so cool. Thus, we enter the portrait gallery, where we see some of our guests in their corruptible, mortal state. Now, the show building is built in a basement because the railroad goes right by the mansion. And so, the elevators that are built into stretching portrait galleries do stretch down to the show building. And as the room does stretch, and so does the portraits, you hear the ghost host saying that this chamber has no windows and no doors. And he offers you this chilling challenge to find a way out. But of course, there's always his way. What happens? Well, this. Pretty scary if you ask me. But here's another fact though, and this is related to my family. When my mother was a child, she went down there with my aunt, my uncle, and my grandparents to Walt Disney World. And here's an interesting fact. My uncle actually screamed in the elevator in Orlando. And my aunt has never stopped talking about it since. I'm sorry, Uncle Jimmy. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's still an interesting story. And I have a story to share after this ride-through, so I'm going to save it to the end. So after leaving the portrait gallery, you actually come across some portraits that are actually based on Mark Davis's concept art. Now, according to the Haunted Mansion book, it says here that it is true that these portraits were done by Mark Davis's concept art, but there are two butts at the end of the hallway that seem to follow you as you board your dune buggy. Now, one of the concept art that he actually worked on, and which was shown in the 1965 television aired special called Disneyland 10th Anniversary, he worked on a portrait called Medusa, based on Greek mythology. Now, what happened to Medusa was she offended the goddess Athena, and what happened is Athena turned her to a Gorgon, and if you looked into a Gorgon, you'd be turned to stone. So, yeah, don't offend Athena, guys, unless you want to be turned into a Gorgon, which is so not fun. So you board your dune buggy and you begin to make your trip to the boundless realm of the supernatural. On your way, you come across the endless hallway, a misty dark passage that is begging you to enter, but offering no end. Now, originally during the production of the Haunted Mansion film, there was going to be an endless hallway, but they decided not to use it. But hey, maybe the remake of the Haunted Mansion is going to use it, right? Right? After leaving the endless hallway, you come across a conservatory where you see an undead resident inside trying to get out of the coffin. Now here's an interesting fact you didn't know. The voice inside the coffin, that is actually Ensign Tensio doing the voice. That's him going, "Let me out of here, let me out of here." And here's another thing. He also did the breakdown spiel of the Haunted Mansion. Let's say your ride comes to a stop and you hear a voice saying, "Playful spooks have interrupted our tour." That's actually him doing the breakdown spiel. That is pretty interesting. And now you know the facts. Now, for the Orlando Mansion, I don't know who does the breakdown spiel. If you can tell me in the comment section down below, that'll be helpful. So you pass through the corridor doors, pass through a clock that has number 13 on it, and you enter the seance room where you see Madame Leota performing a seance. Now here's an interesting fact about Madame Leota. The face of Madame Leota is that of Leota Toombs, one of the Imagineers who worked on the Haunted Mansion. And the voice of Madame Leota is that of Eleanor Audley. That's right, Lady Tremaine from Cinderella and Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty is doing the voice of Madame Leota. That is pretty cool. But if I see either one of them in a Haunted Mansion, I would pay top dollars to see that in animatronic form. I will. So, after leaving the seance room, you enter the ballroom where you see the largest use of Pepper's Ghost effect ever in a Disney park. But wait! Pepper's Ghost. What is that? Well, it's sort of an illusion technique that was demonstrated by an English scientist by the name of John Henry Pepper, who demonstrated this effect in the year 1862. Now, this illusion is still in use even to this day. Whether you're in a concert, amusement park, museum, watching something on TV, that is Pepper's Ghost in use. Now, as you continue to ride along, you actually see a little spider hanging. Now, why is that spider there? Well, apparently some nitwit brought in a weapon of some kind and shot the glass. And the Imagineers thought it could be like a complete hassle to remove one large glass from the ballroom to replace it. Now, I know they have like more in the back, but they decided to put a little rubber spider on it. Why? Well, if you look closely at the glass, it does resemble a spider web, so they just stuck a little spider on it and say, hey, it's a spider web. So whether you're riding along the ballroom, look up and you can actually see the spider. And now you know. So the next time, look up and you can actually see the spider. So after leaving the ballroom, you enter the attic when there are a lot of changes since opening day. Now the changes that were included was the piano in the attic, the husbands that now became canon to the Haunted Mansion, the Beating Heart Bride became Constance Hatchaway, which is sort of the Black Widow bride of the Haunted Mansion, and the return of the Hatbox Ghost. And that's what I want to talk about for a short minute. The Hatbox Ghost. Now originally he was there on opening day, but sadly the effect on him didn't work and he was removed after a few days of operation. Now rumors are speculating that the parts used from the old Hatbox Ghost were used to make Sam the Eagle from now the defunct attraction, America Sings. I don't know if those rumors are true or not, but though then again it is true, it is rumors. But on August 9th, 2015, the Hatbox Ghost made a comeback, and the design of him and the effect work. I love the design of the new Hatbox Ghost. But, question, when is Orlando getting his own Hatbox Ghost? When? When? And another thing about the Hatbox Ghost. Now, the Hatbox Ghost, as you can see, described as a cloaked figure with an evil grinning face. He's carrying a cane and a hatbox hung from his hand. Now, as the story goes, in the story and song from the Haunted Mansion, his head would disappear from his body and appeared in the hatbox. Yeah, thump, 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 thump. That's how it was going to be for the Haunted Mansion, but again, like I said, the effect didn't work. Though he did make an appearance in a few Disney cartoons, shorts, and even in comics, in which I'll talk about after the end of the ride-through. So after leaving the attic, you actually come across a caretaker and his dog who are frozen to death, no pun intended. Why? Because the ghosts are having a party time. In other words, out for a swinging wake. Now, the song you hear as you go riding through the graveyard is just one of my favorite Disney songs called Grim Grinning Ghosts. I love Grim Grinning Ghosts. It's actually one of my favorite Disney songs of all time. It's right there, right next to A Pirate's Life from Me, One Little Spark, and a handful of Disney songs. Now, what is that song all about? Well, the ghosts are coming out from their graves and they're having a good old time. They just want to hang out and be friends. It's actually a really cool song. And these ghosts in the mansion, they're friendly. They just want to have fun. Hang out with us mortal folks. In fact, if I was invited to the mansion, I would have fun with the ghosts all the time. So after leaving the graveyard, we actually come across three of our famous hitchhiking ghost friends, Phineas, Ezra, and Gus. Now, keep an eye out for these three, because they may try to board a doom buggy and may try to follow you home. No joke, they will actually try it. So after leaving your doom buggy, you actually come across Little Yoda, who's telling us to hurry back and to bring our death certificates, so we can be part of the happy haunts. So as you make your way towards the exit, you will actually hear the sound of a ghost laughing, which is actually the laugh of the executioner from the graveyard. And that marks the end of the ride-through. So that's my entire ride-through of the Anaheim Haunted Mansion, which is actually one of my favorite attractions of all time. Now, the effects were great, the animatronics are top-notch, and the creepy and the funny facade of the mansion is top-notch. So, yeah, that's a pretty cool attraction. Now, the legacy it left behind is pretty incredible. It actually made its way to the big screen, which actually got some mixed reviews. Now, some people say they love the Haunted Mansion movie, they didn't like the Haunted Mansion movie, and some are on the fence about it. Now, me personally, I enjoyed it. Sure, the actors' choices were okay, but the real stars of the movie is the setting. I love the sets of the Haunted Mansion. The library, the hallway, the foyer, the ballroom, the mausoleum, everything. Talk about a real-life Haunted Mansion. If I know they're going to make a Haunted Mansion movie, that is what a Haunted Mansion should look like. Now, the Haunted Mansion actually made its way to a few TV shorts, video games, comics, done by Marvel and, I believe, Dark Horse. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, last thing I want to do is I'll tell you my story about the Haunted Mansion. Now, originally, I was scared of the Haunted Mansion at first. That I did not like it, and because there were actual ghosts in the Haunted Mansion. But after writing in 2010, I enjoyed it. And all it were just some gags and some animatronics. That's it. I mean, sure, it happened back in 2007, but after 3 years, I enjoyed it. If someone were to ask me, do I want to work at the Haunted Mansion? I would say yes. Hands down. Now, the last thing I want to do is propose a toast. So let's all raise our glasses to the Haunted Mansion. To the Haunted Mansion. May you continue to be the most spectacular mansion of all time. And let's hope this mansion never goes away forever. So, here's to you, Haunted Mansion. Jin done. So, yes, I guess that's it for this video, my friends. And if you enjoyed this content, please feel free to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel, and turn on the bell notifications so that way you can be notified if I upload the next video. And as always, this is LEGO Maker 96-1 signing off.